Boston is gearing up for a high-stakes mayoral election that features two very different Democrats vying for the city's top spot. Annissa Essaibi George and Michelle Wu faced off during their first one-on-one debate. They clashed over a range of issues, including rent control and policing. Regardless of who wins, it will be the first time Boston has elected a woman or a person of color as mayor. Jon Keller from CBSN Boston moderated the debate. He's a political analyst with WBZ-TV, and he is with us now to talk more all about this. Jon, thanks so much for joining us. So let's get into this. You moderated the debate yesterday. What stood out to you?
Well, at times I felt like I was qualifying for my dental license because it was difficult to extract policy differences between the two. These two women are veteran members of the Boston City Council. They're both progressives, despite some reporting to the contrary. And they agree on more than they disagree on. But I was also struck by the high quality of both of these candidates. Women have been rising in political power long overdue, later than some other cities, but they've been rising here in Boston for the better part of a decade. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley was a city council colleague of these two candidates. These are high quality, experienced public officials. Boston's going to be in good hands after this election.
So, Jon, can you just kind of give us a lay of the land prior to this big first debate? Because it seemed like the polling was indicating that Wu was way far ahead, has support in various communities within Boston. And so I'm curious about the lay of the land before and whether or not their performances would have swayed anyone or, you know, when it comes to undecided voters, help them make a decision.
Sure, Anne-Marie. I don't think there's any doubt that Michelle Wu is a clear front-runner here. After all, she topped the ticket citywide in the council race the last two elections, beating Essaibi George, and she topped the ticket by 10,000 votes in the preliminary back in September. All the polling, fundraising, endorsements, by every indicator, she's got a big lead. Now, Essaibi George demonstrated in the preliminary that if turnout is low, her base, which tends to be primarily in residential neighborhoods of the city that are predominantly older and whiter than other parts of Boston, these are voters who will turn out come hell or high water. And that really benefited her, and it's really what got her into the final. So coming into last night's debate, all eyes were on Essaibi George. What was she going to do to try to change the arc of this race, which appears to be just trending all Wu's way? Would she go harshly negative? Would she try to excite her own base, or would she try to do more than she already has been doing to try to reach out beyond that base to attract, for instance, Black voters, who are among the largest pool of available undecided voters after the three Black candidates in the race were eliminated in the preliminary? And the answer was interesting. She did not go harshly negative. She prodded Wu and did finally draw some differences with her on issues like rent control and the size of the Boston police force, which are big issues here. But she was not a harshly negative kind of attack mode. And Michelle Wu really appeared to be playing a kind of a rope-a-dope strategy, not being careful not to say anything too controversial, not to engage Essaibi George, not to give her any traction. So that brings us to where we are this morning.
So during the debate, it was sort of hard for you to find a distinction between the two candidates. I mean, you pushed for one. I want to play a little bit of how that went.
I disagree. I think there are very clear distinctions between not just our style in government, but our ability to get this work done. I have done it in partnership with those that are experiencing homelessness. I've done it at Mass and Cass. I have been on our streets working with our people, one person at a time, one street at a time, one community at a time. This work is too important to simply do behind a podium at City Hall. It has to be done in community, and it has to center our most vulnerable people. That's what I've done. That is the work around end ending family homelessness in this city, something that we continue to struggle with, making sure individuals who are not well have access to recovery services, making sure that our small businesses and our city's residents are getting the services they need as the challenge of the opioid crisis impacts them so directly. I've done that work. I haven't simply talked about it.
I'm going to give you the last word on this, and then we'll move on.
All due respect to my colleague and friend, we have both been out in community. We have both walked the streets in the area near Mass and Cass, have been at countless hearings and conversations. But for all the times that we have each been there, the situation has gotten worse year after year. The size of our opiate crisis has nearly tripled. We need not just to keep having the same conversations and meetings over and over again, but to take action that gets at root causes, to aim for that boldest vision, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when people say it can't be done or it's outside the purview of city government. We can't be afraid to fight for what our residents need.
So, Jon, these are Democrats. So just again, so people understand, these are two Democrats, and it's interesting to hear their different perspectives on issues that they more or less agree on, but perhaps they have different ideas on how to fix them.
Well, those bites you pulled are a good indication of the competing branding that's going on here. You may remember the late Tom Menino, arguably the most popular mayor in Boston's history, served for 20 years, from 1993 to 2013. His nickname was the Urban Mechanic because he eschewed talk of sweeping visions and long-term plans in favor of more small-bore agenda items, plowing the snow, collecting the trash, making the parks safe and modern, making the neighborhoods livable in the city of Boston. And he was incredibly popular doing that. That's the role model for what Essaibi George wants to do. She wants to be the urban mechanic part two. Michelle Wu has, to a great extent, galvanized a base of progressives, liberals in Boston by talking about a much bigger picture. You heard her talking about addressing root causes. So there is a contrast there. And last night, when they turned to the issue of Mass and Cass, that's an abbreviation for the intersection of Massachusetts Avenue and Melnia Cass Boulevard, an area of Boston that has turned into a tent city of drug addicts living in tents, out on the street, basically in squalor, a scene perhaps more familiar in cities like Los Angeles, but this is new to Boston. It's been growing in size over the last several months. Local residents and businesses are in an uproar over it. It's become a major issue in this election. And Essaibi George wants to get down to the micro level in dealing with this. She's endorsed a couple of short-term alternative housing setups for the people there to get them off the streets. Whereas Michelle Wu last night talked about how she wants a 100-day audit of empty city buildings to decide where these people might be moved. Well, 100 days takes us to the end of January. And here in Boston, if you've ever been up here, it's mighty cold by then and has been for a while. These people are going to freeze to death if she waits that long to take action. So that was a good illustration of this competing branding they're putting forward and an exchange that I've thought worked well for Essaibi George.
Jon, I want to get your take on something. I've heard this race being characterized as new Boston versus old Boston, that you have like a longtime Boston born and bred candidate who's very strong in the older, wider communities, as you pointed out. And then you have like a new candidate who's actually born in Chicago, but that is reflective of the new population of Boston, where people, aren't necessarily from Boston. They might not even be from Massachusetts. Is that a good characterization, do you think?
There's a lot of truth to it. I mean, for those of us here, it's not a new epiphany about Boston. These are trends that have been building for some time. There's been a dramatic influx of newer residents, people who've lived in the city for less than 10 years, and younger. The city's getting younger. So there's no question that the old image of Boston, the stereotype that we sometimes see in the national media is Boston is a bunch of, beer swilling, locals with big, broad accents, either wearing scally caps or their Red Sox caps on backwards, dropping their R's left and right, and kind of reactionary. And there is some of that, I grant you. You know, the viral YouTube video of Casey Affleck playing a Boston townie smashing his iced coffee against the windshield of a Volvo driver. They are out there, but that really hasn't been what Boston's been all about for some time. Again, look at Ayanna Pressley, the congresswoman, arguably the most popular politician in Boston right now, a bald, outspoken black woman, also from Chicago, like Michelle Wu. That's more the face of the new Boston. And yes, there is that contrast between Wu and Essaibi George. If Essaibi George hopes to tighten up this race and make a race of it, she's got to persuade a lot of newer Bostonians that she doesn't want to turn the clock back, that she, too, is a viable leader for the new Boston. That's up to her to get done in these final 3 weeks.
Fascinating insight. Jon Keller, thank you so much. Or should I say Keller?
Thanks to both of you.